Wednesday, 11:30 live. I'm excited to see you today because we are going to talk about career valuation. We're going to talk about investing in your professional journey. So, in this live, I want you to start to think about your career different than you have in the past. First of all, most people are under the impression that their house is their biggest investment. But what I want you to start thinking about is actually the fact that your career is your biggest investment portfolio. Okay. Now, a lot of people plan a vacation with more time and energy than they plan their career. But building a career in this way and creating a career roadmap is going to pay you dividends. And when you think about it, that's a smart investment decision. So I want you to open up your mind. There may be things that you heard before, and there are things that you haven't heard before. There are things that you thought about doing, but maybe you never did. So now is the opportunity to jot down a few notes and make a point at the beginning of 2026 to do this different. So we're going to talk about your professional journey and we're going to open up a new perspective so that you can start to evaluate your skills, your brand, and if you don't have a brand, we can talk about that. Your experience, the people that you know, even your faith and your purpose, all part of how do I do an ROI on where I am in my life as it results to your career. So, career is a long term asset. There's short term, medium term, and long term gains. Okay. Ultimately, we'll talk about legacy, but right now, let's just take a look at the beginning. What have you invested to date into your career? That would be any type of education, any type of certifications. What's the training you've had to have to develop those technical skills that you have? If you're a nurse, an engineer, an architect, a CPA, you have to do ongoing education in order to recertify yourself. So that's all part of it. What have you done to develop a personal brand? Do you even understand what a brand is? Now, a brand, and most people think, yeah, Coca-Cola is a brand, Nike's a brand, but you're a brand, whether you realize it or not. You're walking around and you're giving off a certain vibe. Is that how you want people to see you? Now we are going to talk about AI briefly in a minute, but AI has changed how we see ourselves, how we think about work. It's changed really a lot. So you don't want to be have someone give you a brand, you want to design that for yourself. So as you think about your ROI and you calculate, okay, what are the skills that I have? What are my strengths? So, strengths are things like your passion, your ability to focus, your impulse control, your empathy. How organized are you? Are you a planner? Do you see the big picture and are you into vision? Are you a person that can execute? Can you take that vision and then can you operationalize it into a day to day set of tactics that advance that goal so that you achieve that vision? Are you a goal setter? So, those are some of the strengths. Now, if you've never taken any leadership assessments, I highly recommend a period of coaching. Yes, that's what we do, and that is what I specialize in. But I'm telling you, it's life changing when people start to understand that who they are and the way that they are can be strategic. In fact, one of the biggest parts of a brand, if you will, is your value contribution. You know, when you think of a company like Coca Cola or Nike or any number of companies, what is the value that they're offering in the world? Now, Coca-Cola, if you think about it, sells a sugary drink that has absolutely no value to your health. In fact, it contributes to obesity and diabetes, but their brand and their value was that they were selling happiness. So if you had Coke at your events, if you drank Coca-Cola, you were a happier person. Now, how's that for selling a brand? Now, you want to sell yourself in a way that is authentic, that actually produces a value that you contribute to. But in order to do that, you have to understand who you are as a leader, what your strengths are, what is the impact of those strengths in the environment that you're in. Now, somebody with great empathy in the legal field may not have as big of an impact as a nurse, for example, where empathy and caring is your currency. Okay. If you're in criminal defense, maybe empathy isn't going to serve you that well. Okay. But your ability to be critical, analytic, and methodical is. So you have to understand your skills, the experience that you have, and the context in which these exist so that you can figure out your value contribution that's unique to you. Now, I remember working with this young woman who had just finished a master's degree, her MBA, and she was launching her career and she was setting up her roadmap. And while she had great skills, data analysis, organization, planning, mapping, really her greatest skill was her ability to network, her ability to go out and find people that had the resources, that had the characteristics that was needed in order to fulfill the job at hand. So while these other skills were fantastic, that is what set her apart because if she wasn't part of the team, that networking didn't get done and there was a gap. So think about yours after this. At the end of the live, I'm going to go through a process and action plan, and I want you to then take some notes and figure out how you're going to set up your career roadmap. Of course, you can always reach out to us here because that is what we specialize in. So, okay, so far you've taken a look at what your skills are to date, what the cost of your education or your certifications have been, your experience, what did you get out of that? You're starting to figure out what your high value contribution may be. And I want you now to think about what is it I need in order to be ready in 2026? Because AI has definitely changed the landscape of work. It has changed how we see ourselves. Now, I can go into a whole thing on AI, and I have really an incredible program that I'm putting together called EI in an AI driven world. It's something you are going to want to look out for, and I will definitely send out some announcements because it's going to help you realize that AI is not something you want to compete with, it's what you want to partner with. So, one of the high ROI skills that you're going to want for 2026 is AI literacy. Is start to take a look at some of the programs out there. There's Grok, there's ChatGPT, there's Sinatra, there's Claude. There's there's all kinds of programs that you can use depending on what you're using AI for. Is it a numbers um, program? Are you a CPA and are you going to be putting spreadsheets in there? Some are better than others at calculating numbers. So but also understanding how AI can partner with you in an everyday basis. So that's one of the skills. Now, because of AI, EI, which has always been the number one characteristic of successful leaders, is even more relevant today because of AI. So, AI, while it can Write your apology letter. It can tell you what to say to your spouse or your partner when you offended them. It can help you with your angry boss. It can help you with yourself as you feed it information about some of your responses. But let's face it, at some point, you have to internalize that and you have to be that person that has an emotional intelligence that's activated. And here's something some people may not know: the more self awareness you have, the greater your situational awareness is. So when you understand what's going on within you, you understand more about what's going on in other people, and that builds your situational awareness and basically your strategic thinking. Because strategic thinking is what's going on in the world out there and around me. Okay. Because a skill that you want to learn, and we do have some lives coming up about this, has to do with networking. Am I building that resource network? We're going to talk about how introverts might do it differently than extroverts and how you can really maximize your time and energy when it comes to networking. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't do it because they feel like it's not worth it. It's not worth their time, it's not worth their energy. But relationships today in an AI driven world are really going to matter because that's what's going to help you short circuit the roadblocks that are going to come up as you work through your challenges. Knowing the right person to call to quickly get an answer, to quickly get another connection that you need because of a resource that's limited, because of a change in the market, because of regulations. So having those connections is going to be part of your skill building that is going to enhance your ultimate ROI when you think about your career. Because let's face it, just like businesses buy from those people they know, like, and trust, companies are going to hire you because of your approachability, because of maybe who you know. Do you know some companies actually have software programs that can evaluate your network based on who you know and who you interact with? So, networking is going to be one of those skills, if you will, that's going to compound interest because as that network grows, so too does opportunity because of the change that happens so frequently, because of this disruption that is now part of our normal life. Okay. So then let's take a look at what else is going to help you with your career valuation. We've looked at ROI, we've looked at brand. Now we need to talk more about brand, and I think I'll do a full live just on developing your brand and your unique value proposition because I think it could be helpful. You know, a lot of times people think about proving themselves to other people they meet, particularly if you're looking for a new job or looking for a new opportunity. So there's that striving that comes into play. There's that neediness that shows up because when you're proving yourself, you're wanting validation from that other person. Well, meanwhile, that other person, even if it's a significant other and even if it's a friend, it's not their job to give you validation. So I want you to shift your mind from I'm proving myself to when you know your true value, you are solving people's problems. And now when you solve people's problems, it's a much cleaner transaction. You're bringing something to the table that they want. So now they're leaning in and you have their undivided attention. So just take a minute and see how that feels. Am I proving myself or do I understand my value and I'm coming to the table with a solution or the ability to solve the problem? Because actually, you don't want to come with the solution. You want to engage that person in the process of problem solving so they find the solution. You're still the hero, but they feel good ultimately. So that's part of your career mapping as you evaluate the ROI. Okay, ROI has to do with return on investment. And so when you bring the ability to solve problems because you understand your unique value, you have then just saved that individual that you're talking to a lot of time and effort because you're already ready to go. Your sleeves are rolled up and you want to jump in. So one of the aspects of ROI is to take a look at liabilities. What are the things that might be getting in the way of you operating in the fullness of your strengths, of your value proposition, and most importantly, that would relate to mindset. Mindset contributes. It's stated that it's 50%, but personally, I think mindset contributes as much as 80% to what we ultimately produce. Because Henry Ford, you've all heard this, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So you probably know this story that he wanted a car built. He organized a team of engineers, the smartest people at the time. A year went by, they couldn't do it. He got new people. 2 years, he finally got it. Okay. He wasn't going to quit because he knew what he saw in his vision. Okay. And his mindset was, you can figure this out. So if you feel like you don't have what it takes, and again, that goes back to, do you know your value? So when you understand your value, you're going to have a stronger mindset because you know no matter what, you can figure this out. So problem solving is one of those complex skills because there are micro skills within that. And when you take one of the leadership assessments, for example, the EQI, which is the emotional intelligence assessment, you're going to get a composite score on problem solving that relates to your level of stress. How impacted are you by pressure and tension? Can you still make decisions under pressure? How's your impulse control? Are you reacting, flying off the handle, rolling your eyes, thinking immediately this is impossible? What's your reality testing like? Meaning, do you see things as they are, or do you see things in a fairy tale? Everything's fine. It's all going to work out. I know it's going to be perfect. That's not really optimism. Okay, that's fairy tale. Or do you see things as problem oriented first, which is the default mode in our brain because of how we're hardwired as it relates to stress. So, problem solving is a complex skill. So, you may not feel like you are analytic, but you are great at identifying the moment, at connecting the dots, at seeing patterns, at recognizing trends. Okay, so then you know that as part of your team, you're going to want someone with those analytic skills that's going to be able to list the data and put it all into a nice checklist. Okay, so the more you understand about your strengths, the greater ability you have to develop the team around you. So your liability comes from your mindset. Okay. Most people think education's a liability or the lack of it. When I got my PhD, very often people didn't want to hire me because I was too educated. Okay, was that really a liability? In hindsight, it was my inability to convey the value that I brought to the table. Is age a liability? Well, some people would argue after I turned 50 and I lost my job, I couldn't get another job. Well, maybe that's because you're looking at jobs from the perspective of a 35-year-old and not as a person that has incredible experience, that has a wealth of knowledge, and you're not presenting yourself in a way that demonstrates that knowledge. Maybe instead of looking for a job, you need to look for a way to be a consultant to different levels of leadership. So, how do I position myself based on what I bring to the table? So, you've added your liabilities into your skills, your experience, your values, your unique contribution. Now, let's take a look at maybe longer term aspects of ROI and the career evaluation. What about faith? Now, faith is dramatically going to impact your mindset because if you are operating on the belief system of faith, then that means you have a confident expectation in yourself because you know through Jesus, I can do all things, and you're open to receiving that divine intel. Now, how does your faith help you handle pressure, tension? So take a look at that. Have I totally activated my faith? Do I have a relationship with God? Am I getting that divine intel on a daily basis? Do I understand my purpose? Because your purpose is what's going to give you your why, which is what helps to formulate your legacy. So your why could be I want to leave a an inheritance for my children. I remember working with a single mother who was early in her career. She had a young son and she wanted to leave him a legacy. And so while she was looking at this other job opportunity, she really had developed a passion for exploring real estate and looking at buying and selling real estate. Well, that ended up being her vocation, if you will, and maybe her job because she ended up realizing that the more property she could buy and sell, the greater opportunity she had to leave that legacy for her son. Okay. So faith and purpose are going to be part of that longer term valuation of your career because your career is not just about the compounding value of your raises, your salary, the perks, but it has to do with how much meaning am I getting from my job? Am I making an impact in the world? Do I feel like I'm fulfilling what I'm on this planet to do? And I don't think I've talked to anyone who has not said they want to make an impact. They want to leave the world a better place. And that is often what drives people in their job. And then their frustration increases because they are hit with all kinds of roadblocks about not being able to do their job well enough so that they can make that impact. In fact, did I tell you about the chemist? I just did a real talk interview, and you'll love this interview when it comes out. It's with Heather Acock, who is the owner of Catalyst Travel Design. And she was a chemist for 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry. Chemist, travel. I mean, definitely right brain, left brain. Okay. But one of her passions was her interest in helping the client that she was doing all this chemistry for. But because of the corporate structure, she did not have that direct link with that customer. And that was a piece that was missing for her. So she decided to launch her travel industry, and her particular travel business is really based on the value that she gives to that client, that personal one-on-one concierge service. So the whole idea of your career has a lot to do with coming to an understanding of these aspects of who you are and what you bring to the table. Okay. So it's not a one and done, it takes time. But what I'm asking you to do and to contemplate is what is the process I need to follow in order to strategically consider all that all of the components of who I am and what I bring to the table, and what is the best environment I need, what is the best boss I need, because all of these aspects of you need to be nurtured, they need to be developed, they need to be taken care of. So that is all part of building that career map. Okay. And what's going to help you with that is another one of those complex skills, if you will, like problem solving, and that is resilience. So, resilience is in part grit, it's just your ability to stick it out, to persevere, but it's also optimism. You have to be hopeful about the future. Okay, optimism has a forward focus, whereas pessimism means that you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror and evaluating what happened. Whereas resilience focuses on the future because you're not just white knuckling through whatever struggle you might be in, but you are enduring it because there's something out there that you know is for you and you were going to get. So, resilience, I want you to evaluate yourself in that area. What am I bringing to the table? In some ways, resilience has a lot to do with mindset. Okay. Now, I know because of AI, information overload, chronic disruption, all of our resilience might be a little bit low. So, are you doing what you have to do to build that up and to have that activated in the way that you need to? Having a strong purpose and why is going to support resilience, and resilience supports that. Our why is probably our greatest motivator. And if you're just getting up every day, going to work, it's a grind. If you're getting up and going to work because you know this is at the end of the road, then it's a means to an end. And that is a lot of what resilience has to do. So, as you think about your career valuation and your career map, you covered liabilities, you looked at your skills that you have, and then the skills that you need to learn. Now, just a little tip here, skills today have a shelf life of about 2 years. So I don't want you to think about going back to school for something because by the time you finish with whatever program you're doing, the world has changed already. I want you to think about what experiences do I need? Is there training that I need to go through? Coaching is a great way to very quickly fine tune your skills because often skills have a lot to do with perspective. How do I see myself? How do I evaluate myself? And then the training that you need. Okay, your faith. Where is your faith? Is it even activated? Do I have a purpose? And we all really need a purpose because as human beings, it is part of what propels us forward. Okay. So I want you to put all of that on a sheet, and from that take a look at what is the gap? Where am I now based on where I want to go? Now, a lot of times people, especially women, think, oh, I need to have that exact job. Let's say I need to be an executive before I can go for that executive role. No, because when you look at all of the things that might be part of an executive role, how has my past experiences contributed to the ability to fulfill that role? So that's why you want to do that complete inventory and you want to really look at it objectively. Okay. And that's another way that coaching helps you. Most people are super critical because they're only focused on their weaknesses. They're only focused on the things they haven't done, they don't have, they don't do so well, and they haven't learned to operate out of their strengths. So do that and then come up with a plan. Now, you want to have a short, a medium, and a long term plan. You want to know, what do I need to do right now today? So you start with your overarching goal, then you set up a few milestones, and then you come up with your tactical strategies that are daily actionable steps that are going to get you to that goal. Okay. So I know that thinking about a career is big and it's heavy. And I just want to encourage you that it is so worth it. Because if you have a long term vision of where you want to go, the different things that happen along the way are going to be perceived in a way that relates to that long term vision. Meaning, you might see an opportunity over here that on its face doesn't seem logical, but it so relates to that long term vision that you're going to do that. But if you didn't have that vision, you may go over here because it seems logical, and then you end up getting pulled down a dead alley or a blind alley, and you lose time. I mean, a month, a year, decade. Yeah, time, think about it, is the only thing we cannot get back. So having a career map is going to allow you to achieve not just the financial goals, but that's big. Achieve an investment, a dividend through this career investment that's going to pay off in ways that go beyond financial. Your meaning and purpose, your satisfaction in life, your ability to see the big picture, family, travel, friends, community, input, impact. I know this is a lot to consider, and I cannot wait to hear your feedback, some of your thoughts. Leave comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week, where again, we're going to talk about mindset. We're shifting into February, so we're going to be talking about mindset. I have a great guest that I know you're going to enjoy. So, in the meantime, stay focused and stay energized.